Welcome to Forgotten Civilization, where we journey into the shadows of the ancient world, uncovering stories buried beneath centuries of silence. From the lost cities of the Americas to the mysterious monuments forgotten by time, we bring history back to life. Today, we travel to the ancient heart of Louisiana, to a place older than Egypt's pyramids, older than Stonehenge, the mysterious city of Poverty Point. The forgotten civilization beneath the bayou. Deep within the wetlands of northeastern Louisiana lies a landscape that appears, at first glance, to be nothing more than rolling fields. But from the sky, a pattern emerges. 6 massive concentric ridges, shaped like ripples frozen in time, surrounding a vast central plaza. This is Poverty Point, one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites in North America, and remarkably, it was built more than 3,500 years ago. Long before the Mayan temples or the great mounds of Cahokia, a sophisticated society flourished here. The people of Poverty Point built monumental earthworks on a scale no one thought possible for hunter-gatherers. They moved millions of cubic feet of soil by hand, with no metal tools, no beasts of burden, and no written language. Yet their city stretched across 900 acres, a sprawling urban center of trade, ceremony, and culture that challenged everything we once believed about prehistoric America. The question that has haunted archaeologists ever since is simple. Who were these people, and how did they accomplish such an incredible feat? Poverty Point was more than a settlement. It was a statement proof that complex societies existed in North America far earlier than anyone imagined. The builders and their world. To truly understand the enigma of Poverty Point, we must step back in time to around 1700 BCE, an age when the first cities of Mesopotamia were already ancient and the pharaohs of Egypt were raising their monumental pyramids along the Nile. Across the ocean, in what is now northeastern Louisiana, a very different kind of civilization was taking shape, one without kings, palaces, or armies, yet capable of engineering marvels from the living earth. The builders of Poverty Point were not farmers bound to the soil. They were hunter-gatherers, people who roamed the forests and rivers, following the rhythms of nature. But unlike the nomadic bands we might imagine, these people had something remarkable, a shared vision. Over generations, they came together to shape their landscape into one of the most complex earthworks on the continent. Archaeologists estimate that more than 750,000 cubic meters of soil were moved by hand, basket by basket, to form the ridges and mounds of Poverty Point. Imagine hundreds of people, maybe thousands, carrying woven baskets filled with dirt, walking in lines, singing rhythmic chants as they reshaped the world beneath their feet. At the heart of this city lay a massive central plaza, large enough to host gatherings of hundreds or even thousands of people. Surrounding it were 6 earthen ridges, carefully laid out in concentric arcs like a great amphitheater of the earth itself. Homes likely stood along these ridges, built of wood and clay, facing the central plaza where the community's ceremonies unfolded. From above, the design resembled a great fingerprint, a cosmic spiral that seemed to mirror the celestial cycles of the sun and stars. And towering above it all was Mound A, the largest structure on the site, a monumental pyramid of earth shaped like a giant bird in flight, stretching nearly 72 feet high and 700 feet long. To put that in perspective, Mound A was built nearly 1,000 years before the famous mounds of Cahokia, and centuries before the earliest known pyramids in Mesoamerica. The builders shaped it in astonishing time, perhaps in as little as 90 days, suggesting a level of social coordination and leadership that few believed possible for a pre-agricultural people. But the brilliance of Poverty Point went beyond its size. Artifacts found at the site reveal an extensive trade network that reached across half a continent. Stones and minerals not native to Louisiana like jasper from the Appalachians, copper from the Great Lakes, and obsidian from the Rocky Mountains have been unearthed here, showing that Poverty Point was at the crossroads of ancient America's trade routes. This was no isolated tribe, it was a center of exchange, culture, and communication, where goods, ideas, and beliefs flowed freely. The people themselves left behind no written words, yet their artifacts speak volumes. They crafted intricate clay figurines, carved tools of polished stone, and mysterious objects known as poverty point objects, small baked clay balls used in cooking. These artifacts tell a story of innovation, artistry, and spiritual life. The presence of exotic materials and symbolic objects suggests a people deeply connected not only to the natural world, but to the cosmos. Life at Poverty Point would have revolved around the rhythms of nature, the flooding of the Mississippi, the migrations of birds, the changing of the seasons. The bayous and rivers provided fish, waterfowl, and fertile soil, while the forests offered deer, nuts, and berries. Yet beneath this seemingly simple life lay an extraordinary degree of organization. Someone had to design the city's layout, plan the mound's construction, and coordinate the labor of hundreds. Though we do not know their names, we can imagine leaders, perhaps priests, astronomers, or elders who guided the people through ceremony and vision. The city's architecture seems to reflect cosmic awareness. Archaeologists have noted that certain mounds align with solar and celestial events, suggesting that Poverty Point's builders may have tracked the movements of the sun and stars, integrating astronomy into their worldview. To them, building with the earth was an act of harmony with the universe, a way to balance the human and the divine. Even the name Poverty Point is deceptive. It was given by later settlers who had no idea of the site's importance. For its creators, this place was anything but poor. It was a spiritual and social hub, a meeting place of peoples and ideas, a sacred city built not of stone, but of earth and vision. But one of the greatest mysteries remains. Why was it built? Was Poverty Point a permanent city or a seasonal gathering site for ceremonies and trade? Was it the seat of a chiefdom or a spiritual center visited by many tribes? The evidence hints at both a place where people came together from far and wide, drawn by faith, commerce, and community. For centuries, the site lay silent, its mounds softened by time and hidden by the Louisiana landscape. Yet even today, as archaeologists unearth its secrets, the true story of the Poverty Point people remains elusive, their rise, their brilliance, and their sudden disappearance still shrouded in mystery. The mystery of their disappearance. For nearly 1,000 years, Poverty Point stood as a marvel of human ingenuity, a sprawling, sacred city of earth and ritual. But then, almost as mysteriously as it had risen, it was gone. Around 1100 BCE, the vibrant heart of this civilization began to fade. The people who had once filled the great plaza with ceremony and life disappeared from the landscape, leaving behind only their silent monuments. What happened to the builders of America's first great city? Archaeologists have debated this question for more than a century. There are no clear signs of war or destruction, no burned structures, no mass graves, no evidence of invasion. Poverty Point did not fall in flames. It simply vanished. Like the ruins of ancient Troy or the collapse of the Maya, its decline remains one of history's quiet enigmas. Some scientists believe the answer lies in the changing environment. The mighty Mississippi River. The lifeblood of the region is both a giver and a taker. Over centuries it shifts its course, floods vast areas, and changes the landscape completely. Perhaps the floods grew worse, washing away farmland and isolating communities. The swamps may have risen, fish migrations may have shifted, or droughts could have struck the wetlands. For a people who depended on nature's rhythms, such disruptions could have been catastrophic. Others see evidence of social transformation, that Poverty Point's influence gradually waned as new cultures and regional groups emerged. The trade networks that once brought exotic stones from the Appalachians and copper from the Great Lakes may have collapsed or moved elsewhere. Without these vital connections, the city may have lost its role as a hub of exchange. Its people, no longer bound by shared trade or ceremony, may have dispersed into smaller tribes, carrying fragments of their culture into new regions. There's also the possibility of spiritual exhaustion, that the very purpose of Poverty Point had been fulfilled. To its people, building the great mounds may have been an act of cosmic balance, aligning the human world with the divine. Once that sacred task was complete, perhaps the rituals that sustained the community lost their urgency. Over generations, the gatherings may have become less frequent, the fires burned less brightly, and the city slowly fell silent. But the clues left behind suggest that even as the population declined, the site remained a place of memory, a sacred ground visited by later peoples who saw the mounds as the dwelling place of ancient spirits. The same earthworks that once echoed with the sounds of festivals and ceremonies now became shrines to ancestors long gone. The descendants of Poverty Point's builders may have passed down stories of their origins, tales that, in time, became myth. Archaeological excavations reveal layers of occupation, showing that long after the city's peak, smaller groups continued to visit or live near the mounds. Yet the grandeur, the energy, the scale of the original civilization was never again achieved. It's as if a light that once burned brilliantly across the American landscape slowly dimmed, leaving behind the faint glow of memory. And still, the silence of Poverty Point speaks. The alignment of the ridges, the perfect geometry of Mound A, the artifacts buried in the soil, they all whisper that something remarkable once happened here. These people were not primitive wanderers. They were visionaries, engineers, artists, and astronomers who understood the rhythm of the earth and sky. In modern times, the site's rediscovery has transformed how we see early America. For centuries, European colonists and early scholars believed that monumental architecture and urban planning were beyond the capacity of indigenous peoples. The mounds of North America were often attributed to some lost race, a mythical people who had vanished before the arrival of Native Americans. But research has proven the truth. The builders of Poverty Point were the ancestors of Native American nations, brilliant, resourceful, and deeply spiritual. Their disappearance then was not the end of a people, but a transformation. The spirit of Poverty Point lived on in later mound-building cultures in the Adena and Hopewell of the Ohio Valley, and eventually in the Mississippian cultures that built great cities like Cahokia. Each generation inherited something from this forgotten metropolis: the knowledge of the land, the art of shaping earth, the belief that human life could mirror the heavens. Today, when you stand atop Mound A and look out over the fields, you can still feel it, a hum beneath the soil, a whisper of the people who once called this place home. The wind moves through the grass like the voices of the past, carrying echoes of songs, footsteps, and the crackle of ancient fires. The earth remembers. And so, Poverty Point is not just a ruin, it is a testament, a reminder that long before written history, long before European contact, long before even the rise of the Aztecs or the Maya, America had its own architects of civilization. They built not of stone but of spirit, shaping the land itself into a living symbol of their world. As archaeologists continue to dig, scan, and study, new questions rise. Were there earlier versions of Poverty Point? Did it influence other mound sites across the continent? And could there still be undiscovered cities beneath the Mississippi Basin, waiting to reveal more of this hidden chapter of humanity's story? The truth may never be fully known. But what remains certain is this: the people of Poverty Point were not forgotten by the earth they shaped. They are written into it. Rediscovery and the secrets beneath the soil. For nearly 3,000 years, the mounds of Poverty Point slept beneath the Louisiana sun, softened by wind, covered by grass, and largely forgotten by the world. Farmers plowed its ridges, unaware that beneath their feet lay one of the most extraordinary archaeological landscapes in North America. The great plaza where thousands once gathered was reduced to farmland. The massive Mound A, that bird-shaped pyramid of earth, became just another hill in the distance. Nature had reclaimed what humanity once built, hiding a chapter of history older than the Bible itself. The rediscovery of Poverty Point began quietly, as most great revelations do. In the early 1800s, travelers and settlers noticed unusual formations in the fields near the Mississippi River. They looked like natural rises, but their symmetry, their deliberate shape, hinted at something more. Early surveyors mapped the area, puzzled by its concentric ridges. Some speculated it was the remains of an ancient fort. Others thought it was a strange natural formation created by floods. Few could have imagined that it was a city, a prehistoric metropolis built by hand long before the birth of Rome or Athens. It wasn't until the 20th century that Poverty Point's true nature began to emerge. In the 1950s, archaeologist James A. Ford conducted detailed excavations and surveys that would change everything. Ford and his team uncovered artifacts that were unmistakably ancient: baked clay balls used for cooking, finely crafted spear points, and small sculpted figurines. As the layers of soil revealed their secrets, a timeline began to form. One that pushed the story of civilization in North America back thousands of years further than anyone had believed. The geometry of the site stunned researchers. From aerial photographs, it became clear that Poverty Point was a masterpiece of urban design, a planned city laid out with precision. Its ridges were evenly spaced, forming an enormous semicircular pattern that extended nearly 3/4 of a mile across. The mounds were not random. They followed celestial alignments, perhaps marking solstices or star positions. The more scientists studied, the more the site seemed to reveal a mathematical intelligence, a grasp of space and proportion that rivaled that of any ancient culture. And yet, the more we learned, the more mysterious it became. Poverty Point had no stone monuments, no carved inscriptions, no gold, no palaces, only earth. But what the people left behind in that earth told stories of far-reaching connections. Archaeologists found materials from as far as 800 miles away, stones, minerals, and shells traded from distant regions. The people of Poverty Point were part of a network that stretched from the Gulf Coast to the Appalachians, from the Great Lakes to the Ozarks. They were the connectors of ancient America, bridging landscapes and peoples through exchange and belief. In one layer of soil, researchers uncovered Poverty Point objects, small clay spheres, often beautifully patterned. For years, no one knew their purpose, but experimental archaeology revealed that they were used as primitive heating elements. People placed them in pits, heated them, and then used them to cook food evenly. It was a simple but elegant technology, proof of innovation born from necessity. These objects, humble as they seem, represented a leap in culinary engineering. Excavations also unearthed tiny figurines of humans and animals, often broken intentionally before being buried. These weren't toys, they were offerings, symbols, or ritual items. Some depict women with stylized features, hinting at fertility or spiritual themes. Others show animals, perhaps totems or spirit guides. Each fragment adds a thread to the tapestry of their culture, offering glimpses into a belief system that blended daily life with the sacred. Then came the realization that would transform how the world viewed this place. Radiocarbon dating showed that Poverty Point was built around 1700 BCE, a time when the Bronze Age was flourishing in Europe and Egypt's pharaohs ruled with golden crowns. While the Old World raised temples of stone, the people of ancient Louisiana shaped temples of earth. They achieved their grandeur not through conquest or empire, but through cooperation, unity, and shared purpose. As technology advanced, new discoveries emerged. LiDAR scanning, which uses laser mapping to see through vegetation, revealed even more hidden features beneath the soil. Smaller mounds, roads, and structures once invisible to the human eye. The sheer scale of the site grew larger with every scan, suggesting that Poverty Point may have been part of an even greater network of settlements across the Mississippi Valley. In 2014, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, recognized Poverty Point as a World Heritage Site, placing it alongside Stonehenge, the Pyramids of Giza, and Machu Picchu as one of humanity's most significant archaeological treasures. For the first time, global recognition shined on this quiet corner of Louisiana. It was official. The oldest city in North America had finally taken its place among the great civilizations of the ancient world. Yet, even as the spotlight grew, so did the mystery. Despite decades of research, archaeologists still cannot say for certain who built Poverty Point or why they eventually left it behind. The artifacts speak of a people who understood beauty, order, and connection. But not their names, not their language, not their stories. In a way, the site has become a mirror, reflecting both our knowledge and our ignorance about the deep past. Standing on the grassy ridges today, you might hear only the wind and the rustle of the cane fields. But if you close your eyes, the centuries peel away. You can almost hear the murmur of voices, the crackle of fire, the rhythmic sound of baskets striking the earth as people carried soil to raise the mounds higher. You can feel the heartbeat of a civilization that refused to be forgotten. Poverty Point reminds us that history is not always written in stone sometimes. It's sculpted in silence. The builders may have vanished, but their legacy endures in every curve of earth, every artifact, every unanswered question that still rises from the soil. The echo of America's first civilization. The story of Poverty Point does not end with its fall. It begins anew in its echoes. Though the people who built this ancient metropolis disappeared nearly 3,000 years ago, their influence rippled outward through time, shaping the foundations of later mound-building cultures across North America. From the lush river valleys of the Mississippi to the rolling plains of Ohio, generations would continue to raise earth into forms of power, ceremony, and meaning, a legacy born in the soil of Poverty Point. Archaeologists have long debated what became of the people who created this incredible city. There is no evidence of invasion or destruction, no mass graves, no signs of war. Instead, Poverty Point seems to have faded away quietly, like a campfire burning out after centuries of brilliance. Around 1100 BCE, its population began to dwindle. The plazas grew silent. The trade routes that once hummed with the exchange of copper, stone, and shell slowly dimmed. Yet even in decline, the cultural spark of Poverty Point endured, passed down through stories, traditions, and perhaps even bloodlines. Many researchers believe that the later mound-building cultures, such as the Adena and Hopewell of the Ohio River Valley and the Mississippian civilizations that would build cities like Cahokia, inherited ideas first realized here. The notion of Earth as architecture, of reshaping the landscape to mirror the cosmos, did not die. It evolved. The people of Poverty Point may have moved northward or eastward, carrying their knowledge of mound engineering and ceremonial planning with them. Over centuries, these ideas transformed, from circular villages and ridge complexes into towering pyramids and sprawling cityscapes. When we look at the great platform mounds of Cahokia, built over 2,500 years later, we see the same reverence for the earth, the same geometry, the same deep connection between land and belief. Poverty Point may not have had kings or temples, but it laid the conceptual groundwork for the societies that came after, those that would perfect the art of building empires from earth. But Poverty Point's legacy extends far beyond archaeology. It challenges our understanding of what it means to be civilized. For centuries, the dominant view of North America's past was that complex societies only arose after contact with Mesoamerican cultures, that monumental architecture and organized trade were imported, not homegrown. Poverty Point shatters that myth. It proves that North Americans were capable of creating advanced, interconnected communities long before outside influence arrived. The builders of Poverty Point achieved greatness not through metal or conquest, but through cooperation. Their civilization thrived without cities of stone, armies, or rulers etched in history. They built with earth, the most humble of materials, and yet their work has survived millennia. It is a testament to human ingenuity, proof that progress is not the domain of empires, but of ideas. Modern technology continues to peel back the layers of Poverty Point's secrets. LiDAR mapping, drone surveys, and soil analysis reveal that the site was even more complex than previously thought, with hidden causeways, minor mounds, and evidence of long-term habitation. Each discovery paints a fuller picture of a society that was both deeply spiritual and profoundly scientific. But for every answer we uncover, new mysteries emerge. Why was the site abandoned? What faith inspired its people to move millions of cubic feet of soil by hand? How did they organize without written language or a centralized state? These are the questions that haunt archaeologists, the whispers of a civilization that refuses to fully reveal itself. Today, Poverty Point stands as a sacred monument to America's deep past, a place where history, archaeology, and imagination converge. Visitors who walk its ridges often describe a strange sensation, a sense of connection, of being watched by the memory of those who came before. It's as if the earth itself remembers every footprint, every basket load of soil, every prayer whispered to the stars. And perhaps that's the most enduring truth of all. Civilizations may fall, their languages may vanish, their people may fade into legend, but the land remembers. In the silence of Louisiana's fields, beneath the wind and sunlight, the spirit of Poverty Point still hums. It speaks not through words, but through presence, a reminder that greatness can rise anywhere, even from the humblest hands. When the UNESCO flag was raised over Poverty Point in 2014, it was more than an act of recognition, it was an act of remembrance. The world finally acknowledged what the builders always knew, that they were part of something vast, something eternal. The mounds are their monument, not to conquest or kingship, but to the power of human unity and creativity. So when we gaze upon the great ridges of earth, when we walk the curved paths that once defined a city older than Rome, we are not looking at ruins. We are looking at a message left in the soil, one that says, "We were here, we dreamed, we built, and we endured." And as the sun sets over the Mississippi Valley, casting long shadows across the mounds, that message still resonates through time. It calls out to us to remember, to wonder, and to never underestimate the brilliance of the forgotten. As we close today's journey through the ancient world, remember, history isn't just written in books. It's carved in stone, molded in earth, and whispered through time. Every ruin has a story, every mound a heartbeat, every lost city a secret waiting to be told. Here at Forgotten Civilization, we bring those secrets back to light, uncovering the brilliance, the mysteries, and the untold legacies of the people who built our world long before us. If you've enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep the past alive. Join our growing community of explorers as we continue to travel beyond the written record into the shadows of forgotten empires and the wonders they left behind. Because here, at Forgotten Civilization, the past never truly dies. It waits for us to remember.